Into the side of the mic.
This is the side of the mic.
I know. I'm just joking.
Am I doing it?
I'm just joking.
Don't you know about the bird? Hey, everybody knows that the bird is a word. Bird's a word.
Can we just open with this? With George just jamming it out? Bird is the. Can I just hit record?
I think it is recording.
It is recording.
Welcome everybody to Bobby Talks, ... Those dots are there to tell you that there's always more to the story. Today, I am very honored to have two special guests sitting with me. I have Joe Mattausch, who is my office lord, my studio lord here. And I have Ashley Hutchison with no N. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did I nail them?
That's nailed. Got it.
They are sitting here today with us because we are going to be talking and covering cryptocurrency. I know it's been something that you guys have been asking us to do for quite some time. I have just been kind of stalling because I don't know too much about this field, so I don't know where I'm going to interject other than to ask probably the questions that maybe our audience will have. I don't necessarily want to go into just a review of what Bitcoin is and cryptocurrency and digital currency. But I would like to kind of touch on some of it early just to kind of get our audience on the same page with where we are. But then I think from there, we'll kind of go off to the races. So if that works with you guys, I don't know. But
That sounds great.
I appreciate you being here. Joe, we've known each other now a year. I've rented from you almost a year. Yep. And you kind of gave me a tour of the place and told me some of the things that you are, you venture in. And Ashley, I just recently met you and you guys are partners now. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about why you guys are credible in the field and give us, the viewers at home, some reference to why you guys know what you're talking about today. Joe, if you want to explain.
Sure. I'll start out because I actually initially started my exposure to cryptocurrency in 2016.
Okay.
And
I'm going to ask you to come even closer to that mic because you can hear it when it fades. There you go.
Okay. And so I had investments for a good share of my life and was looking around trying to find some new places to put some money. And I came across an exchange, a place that allows you to buy and sell the cryptocurrency. And they had some really interesting products, mostly in terms of just lending money.
Okay.
First time I'd ever seen something like this that I could put money in there and they would manage lending that out for people that needed to borrow it for margin.
Okay.
And I would earn a really phenomenal interest rate for the time, that time.
Look, let me stop you there just real quick. So what you were doing was you were putting in tangible money.
Correct.
Real money as we know it, so that people could get loans, right? But then in return, you were getting digital Bitcoin or digital currency?
So at the start, it was purely just money. I seen this company did cryptocurrencies, but that was new.
You were just looking for something to invest in.
I was just looking
Gotcha.
for something to invest in, and they were paying some really crazy interest rates, like 10, 20% to lend out money.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was great. So I did that for a little bit, but certainly there was Bitcoin there, and I started to look into that. And I come from a tech background.
Okay.
I ran a internet company for 20 plus years, and when I started to understand that this was a new form of electronic or digital money, I just became enamored with it, and it was just one of those things that clicked.
Okay.
When I understood how this actually worked, and how in the digital world that we live in, I launched my internet company in the 90s when we were doing dial-up internet.
Gosh, I remember those days.
And now, so having
14.4, 28.8.
Oh my God.
56.
Yeah. And so having an understanding of how the world is transitioning to digital, it just clicked. This was money that was truly digital.
But this isn't the first time, I've done a little bit of research. Actually, let me stop there. Let me kind of venture over to you, Ashley, and how you two met and where you got to, your individual story and then how you guys got to where you're going.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yeah, so I moved to Michigan from Louisiana.
Okay.
Even though my family was originally from Michigan, Ohio.
I was going to say, I don't hear the Louisiana drawl there.
It fades. Sometimes it comes back. If I go down to Louisiana and come back up, oh yeah, it'll be back.
We are a chameleon to our environment. That's how it works. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I was a history and philosophy major.
Okay.
reading, writing, analysis, those kind of things. And I was here in Adrian because I had some connections here, and I was studying for the LSAT because I thought that being an attorney was a good idea. And Joe and I met up. We had some mutual connections, and the company he just mentioned, the internet company that Joe founded in the early '90s, he just had me come in and do a little bit of project work. I think I was a 1099 employee at that time.
Okay. So you guys have known each other for a while then. This is not okay.
Oh yeah. And long story short, that company that Joe owned, I stayed there. I abandoned the law school idea. I was attracted to the tech field. Enjoyed, finding, I guess, business applications of technology, and I ended up being managing all the day-to-day operations under Joe in that company for quite a number of years. And we really clicked there and really had a good working relationship. And then Joe decided to sell his company like every entrepreneur wants to do. And
for profit, I hope, right?
For profit. Yeah. And so then I moved on and continued on in that career.
Okay.
Operations, in that space. But very long story short, I started getting more interested in investments as well. I founded a company to manage my own investments and eventually made a decision to go out on my own. And in that process, I was getting more and more interested in crypto.
Okay.
Because I was looking for investment opportunities as well.
And that's the thing that just keeps you keep hearing about, right? It's this cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. What is this? And it becomes, and before it takes over the world, you're just enamored with it, like he said.
Absolutely. And so I was looking for those as well. I was doing some trading and some investing and some, I guess you could call it some alternative investments, maybe not in the crypto space, but some interesting opportunities there. And then I knew what Joe was up to, and and I just reached out to him and I said, hey, why don't we get together and talk? I know you've been doing some mining, you kind of been in the space. I'm not sure exactly the full extent of it, and we just started talking. And he's like, well, now that we're talking, so we just really started discovering that.
So now that you guys are working together, you guys are getting ready to launch a new business, right?
Correct.
We can talk about this, or am I spoiling something?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to transition to, is that we've launched this business. It is fully up and operational.
Okay.
CryptoVentures LLC, and I guess it's important to understand the roadmap. I'll just give you a little hint of it here, because just to let you know what our focus is. We're definitely doing. Joe's been in the space, like you said, since 2016.
Right.
And so we're definitely CryptoVentures is mining cryptocurrency. And then we're also investing in the crypto space and the various instruments that you can invest in. And so we want to be the doers. We are the doers, right? And
so you're proactively, yes, you're in the game now, so to speak.
We're in the game and looking to the future. Not only what's happening now, which seems like a lot of people are. I just read today that something like a very high number of Americans are now invested in crypto in some way, which I guess we could debate those numbers, but it seems to be, kind of going through an early adoption / mainstream phase. But I guess my point is that we're in the space, and our job is to continue, for our own benefit and for others, to develop that expertise even more, to stay on top of the latest developments, and figure out how to invest in crypto profitably and safely, and manage risk at the same time that we take advantage of opportunities. But the thing that we've dug out in our planning for this company is that we want to be focused on helping businesses and professionals engage with the space. And so that's the real end goal.
So kind of like almost like a safe transition to the digital space. I could, call your guys' company and say, help me kind of make that transition. If I was something I was willing to do, and you guys could help me venture into that type of area, I suppose.
Eventually, yeah.
Okay.
That's
the vision. That's the bigger vision.
That's the vision, and honestly, we're kind of in it for not to make a quick buck. We're in it for ideological reasons.
Sure.
Because if you are a business today, or individual or professional for that matter, and we really do believe the signs are there that cryptocurrency not only is going to be a huge factor in the financial system and in culture and society and economies in general. But I mean, if you miss this, then you're going to be missing a lot over the next 5 to 10 years, 15 years. We really believe, and I want to speak for Joe, but obviously we've had quite a bit of conversation on this. We really believe that cryptocurrency is a transformative factor for the financial system. So we want to help everyone we can as we go along be educated on it, especially businesses that want to, everything from supply chain to, do you want to diversify your balance sheet into crypto? Like many actually large public traded companies are already doing. Well, even small and medium-sized businesses, local businesses in our community that know about it, they know it's a fad. They might have heard of Dogecoin or something like that.
Yeah.
And they see, the tweets. It's a cultural thing.
It's
now.
only what they hear from social media, right? It's what they're gathering from that on the top surface. So nobody really knows. And I probably fall into that, right? You guys are the doers. You guys are proactively doing the research. You know what it is. I'm the guy that's asking the questions because I'm like, what is Dogcoin? Oh, it's Dogecoin.
You're right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big debate.
Yeah.
I call it doggy coin.
I've heard that too.
Yep.
So this is all rather interesting to me because before we kind of venture too far down the road, I kind of want to do some of the things. You mentioned mining, right? Now, I've done a little bit of research to figure out what mining is, so to speak. I think what we need to do, just because we talk on all that or different subject matter here, I don't want to go into a review session too much, but explain some of these things. Okay. Cryptocurrency is not, in the 90s and 80s, I heard, like e-money. I remember e-money. Hutchison's something that the digital currency that happened in the 80s and 90s, PayPal, Hutchison, that didn't stick versus what's happening, in the late 2000 movement with, Bitcoin and Dogecoin and some of these other ventures. Why didn't it stick early on? What's the difference? It was mining up something that was tagged or attached to e-money and PayPal at that time, or was that something that came with this gentleman Satoshi Nakamoto, or this idea of? And that's what I was going to ask you guys in a little bit. Who is? But
we don't know. But
right, I know.
I'll just give you a little.
So just tell me, did that come with the 2009 venture? Is that what his or whoever's revolutionary idea was? Is that why e-money didn't work? Like, what's the difference?
I would think that's a core component of why Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are different than anything that is kind of predated that. I'm not familiar with like e-money or anything. I never did hear anything about that.
Okay.
But
PayPal you have, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And didn't
PayPal.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess you'd call it kind of e-money, if that's what you're referring to there.
Yeah, electronic money,
Right.
at that time.
But at that point, I'd put that into really the same category as a credit card or something, right?
Okay.
Like that, right? Those are just kind of shortcut electronic representations of your accounts. Okay?
Of real money that you put in.
Of what we call money today, yes.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just like a different language, so to speak, of money, but it's still based on the
same
principles that we have today.
Okay.
I think where Satoshi Nakamoto and Bitcoin came into place was that he created kind of a self-sustaining, independent system, and the key word there was decentralized.
Right.
So that it lives on its own, and it is not under the control of a particular government or entity or corporation. And so it takes on an existence just like gold or silver, in that nobody owns. Well, people own gold, but
right. It's supposed to have like a value to it. Forever gold there is, you got that dollar value, right? To back it up. That was at one point in time. We're not there no more, but
yes,
right.
Yeah. So again, I think that was the innovation that happened with Mr. Nakamoto there.
So the question then becomes with mining. You guys, you talked about how Joe is mining, right? I can hear the mining. The question is that what is mining? I mean, because if you're trying to the goal is to get every person in the world to transition over to digital currency or cryptocurrency. I kind of need to understand it, right?
Yeah, let me.
Mining makes it sound very complicated.
Well, let me put it this way, like kind of a piggyback on what Joe was just explaining there. This cryptocurrency is based on, you might have heard this, a technology called blockchain.
Yes.
Okay. And that's very, very important. In addition to the ideological points about a decentralized currency, which we could talk about, it creates more opportunity, it's more democratized, it kind of upends the traditional financial system in a way and creates some opportunities there that we didn't have before. There's also a practical security-oriented issue here too, that blockchain itself as a technology helps us with. And that's where mining comes in, because what mining really is, it is an operation and a process to secure the blockchain network that cryptocurrencies and that new financial system is laid on top of.
Okay.
And so in very simple terms, when you're mining, you are solving an encrypted transaction, okay? And when you do that, it secures the network. And the idea is that today, like on PayPal, it's electronic representation of your cash account.
Right.
It's kind of one-to-one. You have an account with whoever, and something, you deposit, you withdraw. Well, that's pretty interceptable. That's not all that secure sometimes. The thing that secures it is FDIC insurance,
Right, yeah.
But these things can be hacked, and
It has been hacked, yeah, time and time again, yeah.
But on the blockchain network, there are just many, many nodes, and they're mines.
They're like little digital receipts, right? That attach one part of the chain to the other part of the chain, right? Is that what it is?
Well, when I get a transaction as a mine and I process that transaction, the next part of that transaction, and I'm trying to like kind of reduce this down because I don't want to.
You should, yeah.
But when I solve that transaction as a mine, which is really a mine is a computer,
right,
that's solving a complex algorithm,
right.
Okay, so when I solve that, the next piece of the puzzle on the chain might be solved by a mine in Cambodia, or a mine in China, or a mine in Montana, and that don't know anything about each other, that aren't connected to each other. They're on a network that's totally distributed. It's called distributed ledger. So instead of a one-to-one ledger, it's secured by the fact that if I'm a hacker, it's virtually impossible for me to put the pieces together of that puzzle and actually, interfere with that transaction. And so I don't know if I did a good enough job breaking that down all the way, but that is essentially what mining is. And to do that, you get a reward on the network.
And the reward would be
Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever cryptocurrency you are mining, or whatever network you're mining on.
So the mining portion of it is the actual time that you can put value on, right? Because it takes time in order to to solve these. To solve these algorithms, as you call them. You're trying to attach digital currency so that it has some type of value behind it, right? Like we talked about gold. Would that be the value that goes with digital currency? Is it the time invested in, or is it the security of it? Like what gives the digital space their value? If I'm going to go invest in this, and we'll talk about investing in it later. Like what gives it value? If I'm just if I'm Joe Schmo here and I'm trying to like get my head around digital currency, what gives it its value?
Well, there's a couple of approaches to look at there.
Okay.
So, part of it I think is time, but the other part, at least for Bitcoin and Ethereum right now, is the cost of actually running and operating those miners. They use a lot of electricity, and
sure,
it's a considerable investment. And so, to mine, you put a stake into the Bitcoin world or the Bitcoin network, so to speak. you're investing in it with your time and resources.
Sure.
And that's kind of what's guaranteeing that that fake bitcoins can't be created. If you think about it, again, the difference here is we're talking about a digital currency. Bitcoin is literally a piece of software.
Right.
Nothing else.
Right.
Just a piece of software. And so one would think, well, I'm a software designer. I can put some code together and throw it out there and say, hey, this is money too.
Right.
But that's just me, and who else is going to buy into that?
Right.
With the idea of Bitcoin miners that are literally distributed around the world, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of machines all working in consensus
To work together,
Right.
to work on this blockchain,
to work on this.
this ledger.
Right. Part of what Ashley was alluding to is that when a transaction is put onto the digital ledger, when somebody says, I'm sending Bitcoin to my friend here, that transaction gets recorded into the blockchain by a miner, and then some other miner says, yeah, I agree, I concur, and some other miner says, I concur as well.
And it just continues.
Yeah, and continues to concur, and that's why, again, someone can't come along and rewrite that and say, oh, no, that didn't happen, because thousands of other miners have already said, oh, no, we
concur that this has.
We concur.
That's what
this happened.
cryptography is. It's the encryption of a message or data, and that's the whole point behind crypto.
So, okay, I think that right there kind of helped me connect some dots. Okay, because now the name makes sense and everything. Bitcoin is special to mining, or is mining special to cryptocurrency? Does Bitcoin have a stranglehold on this mining and giving it security and this whole thing, or is that all these different types of Bitcoin type companies have that mining that exists? And then I have questions that come from that.
Well, I think one way to answer that, and I do want to follow up too on the previous question, is that mining is common within cryptocurrency, not just Bitcoin. There are other coins that can be mined, but keep in mind, mining is just a method to secure the network and to process the transactions. And there are other, we don't have to get into this today, but there are other things that are emerging, other methods to do that, because it's all about securing a network and making the network suitable for transactions, suitable for activity. And that actually...
And you have to convince a person like me that it's a safe world to be in.
Yes, right? And absolutely.
Because that's the tail end of that question. I'm sorry to interrupt, but this tail end of that first question that you asked was, how does it create value?
Right.
And the value is knowing that if I create this transaction, it is going to be honored by
everybody
on
the
ledger. Network.
Okay.
Absolutely, and that's where I was kind of going as well, is that when you think about value, why is a dollar valuable? Right. It's because of what you can buy with it, what you can trade it for. And so really the end game of crypto is not speculative investing. Okay, it's not, let me buy Dogecoin at 13 cents and sell it for 50 cents.
Right.
I mean, more power to you. I just read today about a guy, and he was a Goldman Sachs executive, or some executive at an investment firm, and he retired because he made a fortune on Dogecoin or Dogecoin. So you know what? More power to him.
People like Elon Musk who give it credibility, right?
But that's not really the end game. That's not what gives value to crypto. What gives value to crypto is what you can do with it.
Right.
And so that's
the thing that's going to make it sustainable.
And so it's all about, like in the case of Ethereum, that was the big draw from the development of Ethereum on the heels of Bitcoin, is that Ethereum has other options and things that you can actually do with the network, like financial tools and gaming and NFTs and their applications. So that's really the end game. That's what gives it value, is in our digital world. I mean, my kids, I use this example all the time. They are living in a digital world and using currency with them, programs like Roblox and other programs. That's really what's all about. What's the application in our digital world?
Right.
And we're finding every day that the applications are absolutely astounding.
Really?
Not only now, but where you can see it going, the way this currency is going to be used, there's going to be a big value there, I think. And I don't think that's hyperbole to say that, because of what you're going to be able to do with crypto.
Is it a generation type of progress? Like, do you have, you have some older members of the society that don't like cell phones, don't like, the world is changing, no country for old man type thing, you know what I mean? Is it going to take that type of where you just kind of have Gen Z and it's always just you're born into this type of environment? Is it going to take that type of time, or is it coming, like you said, in the next 5-10 years and you miss the boat? Like, how fast is this going to take over?
Well, I'll defer to you on that.
I'm happy to jump in on that one. And trying not to appear too conspiratorial, but
Sure.
The whole crypto thing has made me, and I think, and it will, a large segment of society take a look at what money really is. We've grown up with it, it's this paper bill that I have, and I can buy things with it, and as long as you're happy to take my dollar and I take your dollar, it all works, and we can represent that on credit cards and wire transfers and all that kind of thing, and that whole system works. But it's when you look at what the dollar bill is today, the only thing that gives it value is the faith and credit of our government.
Right.
And as I've kind of gotten more into what currency means, I've taken a look at how money has evolved over time, and it was really eye-opening. You kind of see how money has evolved over time from the days when we just traded furs for
The barter system, right?
stone or whatever it is. But what I found most interesting, and just brushing over a whole lot of that, governments throughout history, from the time that money kind of became a thing, when we were using gold coins or seashells or whatever, governments have invariably been unable to resist the temptation to leverage their society's money for their own gain. Basically, they wind up devaluing their currency,
Which that's currently going on and has been. Yep.
Well, the coronavirus was just a huge catalyst for that. But now, we can all see it. I mean, we understand the good that the stimulus packages and things have done to prevent disasters for people. But there is a price to pay for that. And what I see personally is that the era of blockchain and digital currency, especially a decentralized currency, is going to give society some alternatives. I don't know that cryptocurrency is necessarily going to replace all currencies of the world, but it is matured to the place today that it can't be replaced, and now is becoming a backstop or a safety net, so to speak. If any government starts to get out of control, there is a universal currency
that already exists.
And that to me says that the functionality that it brings to the table is Ashley was alluding to. This, remember, this is software, so we can program software to do things that a piece of paper can't do.
Right.
Virtually anything, really.
Absolutely. And not to mention the efficiencies that we can gain from that. So I see that it's a transition that's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Let's stop there. It's crazy how fast a half hour will fly. We're literally 30 minutes into this thing almost. We're going to take a break real quick. You guys know the drill, how if you're sitting at home. I'm sitting here with Ashley Hutchison and Joe Mattausch. We are talking cryptocurrency. We're going to come back, touch base on that, and I've got a whole slew of other questions. We're just getting started here at Bobby Talks. Welcome back, everybody, to Bobby Talks, ... You know why those dots are there. I'm sitting here with Joe Mattausch and Ashley Hutchison. I have to keep doing that so that I don't mess it up.
There you go.
We are sitting here talking cryptocurrency and the digital space when it comes to money, and we are just scratched the surface. I have so many more questions. I know probably nothing more about it than when I started, even though you guys have done a very good job. There's things about it, and this is why I say that, is that not to insult, but to insult my own intelligence, I guess, on some level, is that right now we have a system of currency that currently works for us, right? Whether or not it's the most efficient and the most secure, we have an entire population of people that buy into it, and just because it's been this way for the longest time. And we can see it, we can feel it, we know it exists. When you start talking about the digital world and trying to say that it's more secure than what we currently have because of, you know, the one-to-one and, you know, the ledgers that do exist and the, you know, kind of the implications of what makes that world so unsafe versus what we have now, or what you guys say exists. What comes to my mind is this, you know, you say hacking becomes really impossible, which is good. I'm glad to hear that. However, could it be blocking someone's access to their digital currency? So maybe they can't tamper with whether or not the transaction. Could somebody go in there and block your access from receiving it? Because I've heard these stories about people that have lost their Bitcoin receipts and they can never get them back, and I don't even begin to understand that. Could that happen? And if so, will it happen? And are those things that you guys take as major concerns and try to figure out how to solve those?
Well, and I think that's a great question. And if you don't mind, I'll take that one on. You know, we both come from a tech background, you know, education experience and that. So we're very in tune with security issues. And I think it's important, two things: to demystify cryptocurrency for people.
Sure.
You know, because we talk about all these grand ideas and we believe in it ideologically, but the fact is it can be accessible for anyone, really. Having said that, absolutely hacking takes place. It's a relatively new space, and the concept of the blockchain is very secure. But like anything else in our digital world, there are malcontents out there,
right?
And people that are trying to take advantage.
Every day doing it right now, just trying to solve that puzzle,
And,
right?
and that actually is one of the things that probably dissuades some people when they hear reports of, you know, that report a few weeks ago or a few months ago where the guy, you know, forgot his password or something and lost, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, it sounds like a nightmare, right? And actually, absolutely, you know, and that's something that we are focusing on as a business. Even is not only what are the most, you know, the things that we need to be involved in the crypto space, but an eye towards security. How do we secure these things? Because there is a threat out there. There's a threat in everything that's digital. And so I think it's important to be upfront and honest with people about that too when you're talking about these things, that you do have to take measures, educate yourself, and even maybe be cautious and do your due diligence before you get into anything, really.
Yeah, and you know, it's I think with anything, you know, you talk about just the banking system back when that first got going, you had to get the American people, you know, on board with it, and you got to convince them that it's safe. But it's more than just that. You also have to get, you know, you can go ahead and convince us, the American, you know, or whoever, just the person that has money or who's trying to get into this field. You can convince me that it's safe and that maybe I make that transition. The issue is, I think what you also need is a big player to make the transition too, whether it be like the United States saying we're going completely digital by so-and-so, right? Because that would force a lot of the global scale's hands, right? Do you foresee something like that happening from a country side? Just like, you know, maybe accepting it as another alternative, or is it just always going to live in this global internet space and not necessarily with any borders?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I think certainly in the last couple years, cryptocurrency has matured to the point that it's catching the eye of the world leaders.
Okay.
And they, you know, Bitcoin, I think they say, 2008, 2009, somewhere around in there is when Mr. Nakamoto invented Bitcoin. And it's it's went through some phases. There's in terms of acceptance and viability and things like that. But I think within the last couple of years, it's kind of crossed a threshold to the point that, this has been around for 13 years.
It's not going away.
It doesn't seem to be going away. And it's not just about the fact that it's still present. Again, the underlying technology, the blockchain technology is truly an innovation that has enormous potential. And so with that, certainly governments are beginning to stand up and take notice. China is probably the leader today in that space. A term that eventually you'll cross in the cryptocurrency space is central bank digital currencies.
Okay.
So
is that not kind of an oxymoron right there? Isn't that the whole point of, you know what I'm saying, of cryptocurrency is to make sure that it's not centralized?
Well, the purest form of it, certainly that what Mr. Nakamoto envisioned, absolutely. But the thing is that, again, it's a piece of software. It's a technology, and it works very well for a currency. It creates a way, a very secure method for creating payments and creating a money system. And in fact, I want to just digress for a second back
Sure.
on that previous question about safety and things of that nature.
Yeah.
I want to emphasize that in terms of hacks and those kind of vulnerabilities, absolutely, those are out there and present. But for clarity's sake, the hacks, anything that has happened, is not because the Bitcoin software failed or was hacked. Hacks are all the hacks and losses are when an exchange, an entity like Coinbase or you name
An actual
it,
business or company.
a business or a company has failed to keep the credentials and access safe.
Okay, so it's yes, gotcha now. I understand.
And again,
Or as a person, you failed to keep your credentials safe.
I've been there a time or two.
exactly, and so you do want to think of
So it's not it's not Bitcoin itself that failed. That held up. It's the the us saving our passwords onto those Google search engines and then getting an email that says, "Oh, something's happened. You need to change your password," and then you do it, right? So yes, we fail ourselves more times than not. I totally understand that, Joe. Yeah,
absolutely.
And it just happens to be that in the crypto space, sorry to interrupt, but if that happens to you, you can't go to the bank and say, "Hey, I got defrauded."
right.
It's gone.
And that's the fail-safe that exists right now, because I have been defrauded a couple times, and I'm like, man, my money all of a sudden is in South Africa, and I don't really know how. They know exactly where it's at, but they don't know how it got there necessarily. But all I know is that I get my money back, right? And then I have to learn from whatever I think might have done it, and then that's all I care about is I get my money back, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I talk about how you have to convince me that this is safe, even though I acknowledge that what I currently have is not necessarily the safest thing.
Well, and what you have to keep in mind too is that cryptocurrency now has a market cap in the trillions of dollars that's on the network. And so, when you hear reports of, this happened, this money, was stolen or whatever, those can easily be over exaggerated.
Okay.
In the context of literally trillions of dollars that's flowing in this network. The network itself is secure. You do have reports of individual instances, like Joe was saying there, companies, individuals that, fell into a trap, situation. But that could happen virtually anywhere.
Sure.
On the internet, so.
And I guess I wanted to round out that thought and tie that back to the beginning question of, how, I think it was how soon or whether governments are getting involved.
Right.
And so the point being that blockchain supports the ability for there to be a reliable money system. And I think governments can choose to embrace that and run their own blockchain. Bitcoin will exist.
Right.
But there's nothing that says that
the government can't have its own entity.
That can't have its own kind of private blockchain system. And at that point, then, if they so choose and society accepts it, they can bring back in the comforts that we have today. That yes, I'm using my government's digital currency through Visa, but Visa will guarantee that if somehow I get hacked or something, that they'll cover that.
They'll cover that.
They'll insure it.
Yeah. It's interesting because I sit here and I think about all this and I'm trying to like process it. And I got a couple questions. So let's just go to the layman's questions, right? Let's go down to the average Joe here. I currently have 0 digital currency or cryptocurrency dollars, right? I don't know what the term is. Is it Bitcoin? Is that, dollars, Bitcoin? Is that, I have 0 of that.
Cryptocurrency.
I have 0
generic.
cryptocurrency. Okay, generic form. Okay, or term. I have 0 of that. How do I obtain it? What do I have to do?
Well, I mean,
Am I selling a pizza to the guy and trying to for $10? I mean, type thing, 10,000 Bitcoins. Is that what I'm doing? What am I doing? How do I obtain it?
let me try to break down layman's answer to that.
Sure.
There are many options to be able to do that. Okay? But I'll give you an example that many people may know of. It's a company called Coinbase. Coinbase just went public as a stock, as a public company on the New York Stock Exchange,
Right.
So it's a publicly traded company, but Coinbase is a crypto exchange. And so
Interesting.
you
Okay.
could, Rob, we could like literally tonight, we could have you download Coinbase on your phone.
Okay.
We could get your bank account connected to Coinbase, and you could wire money, transfer money, use a debit card, whatever it is, and put cash in your Coinbase account. And then you could purchase a cryptocurrency, let's say Bitcoin, with that cash, whatever that exchange rate is. Unfortunately, Bitcoin, the cost of a Bitcoin as of, I don't know what it is
What
at
is-
this moment, but
what
it's
is
about
it?
50-something $1,000.
So for every 1 Bitcoin, I would have to put down $50,000 US. That's the exchange rate right
Well,
now.
but that's the thing now is that you could buy 1/10 of a Bitcoin. You could buy 100th of a Bitcoin.
Interesting.
It's fractionalized, and so that's what we were saying when we said it's accessible. And so Coinbase is an example of an exchange that you can do. There are many other exchanges out there that you can use, actually globally.
But when I still feel like when we're talking about cryptocurrency, it still feels like just an investment, right? It feels like stocks. You invest in this, it goes up, it goes down. The value, like Bitcoin, because right now it's a hot commodity. People put value into it and they see value in it. And right now it doesn't really feel like I'm going to take that 1/10 of a Bitcoin and turn around and buy something with it because I'm afraid of the value of it going up or something of that nature. So to me, it still feels like just an investment. How does it make that transition over to us spending it freely every day? Because does it have to level out? Does it have to get more people involved? I mean, how do we get there? Do we want it to get there?
It's a great question. And,
Like, does cryptocurrency actually want to be the replacement of money? Does it want to become the alternative to money, or does it want to just constantly stay in this investment field?
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. You may have seen reports. Visa, for example, MasterCard, the major credit card processing companies, are now starting to develop products and connections around cryptocurrency. Some of the accounts that you can park your cryptocurrency in, buy cryptocurrency in the exchanges, they're on the cusp of releasing credit cards and debit cards that are Visa credit cards, Visa debit cards, in which I will have a card in my wallet, just like I have a debit card from a local bank.
Oh man.
And we will be able to spend crypto with a card, just like any other Visa, wherever Visa is accepted. That is already something that is very close to happening. Visa's already signed the dotted line on it. I believe MasterCard as well, but I know Visa for sure.
That's a game changer right there.
It's huge.
Yeah.
So like you said, obviously there's the investing side. It's just like stock, investing. It's a great point. many people will trade, they're high frequency trading,
Right.
or many people will just be long-term traders. They have different investment strategies. This is a little different because, I personally want to be in the space not only to profit from it, but to be involved in it because of all the things that are going to happen. I want to have my assets in crypto so that I can spend crypto, all the different transactions that I'm going to be able to do that I may not be able to do in the traditional financial system. And so even the big players in the financial system today are getting in on this, and they're going to enable you to be able to transact.
But
So, go ahead.
I guess I want to jump in on that one. I think in answer to your question, what needs to happen for cryptocurrency? I will say right now, it is still a very speculative investment.
Okay.
It is not nowhere near reaching the point that I would be comfortable with it as a currency. Right now, we're certainly getting there. We're enabling the means for transactions to take place with cryptocurrency, with Bitcoin or Ethereum, but the coin itself still needs to come into its own. We need, obviously, you don't. If you've got a Bitcoin today and it's worth $50,000. It might be worth $55,000 tomorrow. Do you want to spend that today and miss that?
No,
Or it might be worth $40,000.
It might be.
But it could be right.
But what?
That's what makes it that stock game, right? Yeah.
Right. But what cryptocurrency wants to be, though, is a true store of value, to the point that it's universally recognized. It so that it can be for you a place where you can hold your money, your value, and know that that value is still going to have the same buying power that it did a year ago,
Right.
or 2 years ago. And that's ultimately where it will need to be in order to gain that broad acceptance.
Okay, I totally understand that then, because I was sitting here trying to think, how can I turn, how many Bitcoins does it take to buy a 4 for $4 from Wendy's, right? And that could be completely different from week to week, where in, the US dollar, although it has that same type of fluctuation, we pretty much trust that, that if 4 for $4, it might be 4.24, it might be 5.24, but it's not going to be 8.24. You know what I mean? We pretty much trust it's going to be within that small window of margin. You mentioned the government, and you said something earlier about you didn't want to get too conspiratorial there. And then you also mentioned the purist. When we talk about the government kind of, taking on this as an entity, is that what we want? Do we want the government's hands on this, or has that become the part where they start, just like they have with every form of currency, they start leveraging it, and it becomes kind of the downfall of a lot of things, inflation and all the things that come with that. Do we want that? Do you want that?
I think we do.
Okay.
Ultimately, we want government to recognize the technology, the utility of what cryptocurrency in general can do, and not try to inhibit it.
Okay.
Right. And
have they ever successfully done that with anything?
Now, absolutely, right,
Yeah,
right. Drugs, they prohibit that, and there's a whole market that
Sure.
crops up. And really, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general is exactly that way. I don't have it per se, but Microsoft's Bill Gates has already said you can't stop Bitcoin.
Right.
It is once it's in it launched and it has gotten the traction that it has, it will continue to persist. Now, the government can certainly make it illegal,
Right.
but it won't make it go away. But still, I think ultimately we want our government and governments of the world to adopt that technology, and hopefully, in perhaps a optimistic way, maybe it will introduce a new paradigm for society, that we don't have to keep coming back to this situation that, our currency is getting devalued. We're seeing hyperinflation in these little countries and things like that. We create a truly stable form of money exchange
Globally, right?
globally.
So we would be using the same value system in China over here. Is that correct? Almost insane. Like instead of when you go to China, we'd have to exchange the exchange rate. Would we have the exact same dollar for dollar there?
I think maybe one way to say that is that it's an increasingly interrelated, connected system.
Okay.
Where you can exchange, you can purchase. Like we've mentioned several times. This can be basically programmed and developed to do just about anything, and so the applications of instead if I want to send money, if someone is in the United States and they have family in another country and they need to send money, they don't have to send it through multiple intermediaries that all take a fee, but there's a system and there's a network that can almost instantaneously and at a very good rate accomplish that task. And I think that governments, they're already showing signs. We're already halfway there. I mean, when you get your stimulus payment or you get a PPP loan, they don't come give you a suitcase of cash.
Right.
Like they move it from one digital ledger to
another digital
at a
ledger.
bank.
Right.
And then it shows up in your account. And so it's already getting there. I know this current administration is hinting at, or even maybe announced that they're putting together work groups to study how government should engage with it. I know the SEC has already gone on the record and said the current SEC director doesn't even think that the SEC should be regulating crypto.
Oh, interesting.
And,
That's interesting.
And so they're already starting to look at it. And another thing, this might seem counterintuitive, but the fact that now, as of this year at least, when you fill out your tax returns, you are going to have to declare crypto. They're recognizing it as a taxable asset.
Of course,
they're not saying it's illegal. They're not saying, they're not beating around the bush. It's a taxable asset. When the government starts taxing things, then they're thinking about how to regulate it.
Right, and that's just around the corner.
And I would agree. I would agree with Joe. As long as the regulation isn't a showstopper and doesn't distort the whole project, the regulation I think could give some even more legitimacy and bring more adoption. And it's going to be a hard thing for them to hold back and over-regulate, I think.
Well, yeah, no, I guess
even though governments are very good at that.
yeah, they are. That's what they do. But sometimes it's needed. We've got about 6 minutes left here in our YouTube world. And I got a few other questions that I wanted to get to. And just kind of, we talked about the blockchain and I didn't really touch on double spending, but that's kind of the whole point, right? Is, I watched a documentary, guys. That's where I got that term.
Pretty techy.
Yeah, exactly. Just the whole idea of being able to copy the money and buy, more than one thing with the same dollar, essentially. I guess my next question would be this. So we talked about if I was to want to go to Coinbase and I want to get a part of this world, I could buy a 1/10 of whatever and invest in it. But so what happens now? I have just my phone and I have digital currency here. Where do I go to find out who's using this? Like, what can I buy with it? How did that guy make the transaction for pizza way back then, right? That gave it credibility. Again, I watched a documentary.
Well, that was a sad story, actually.
Yeah, I heard
10,000 Bitcoin or something for a pizza.
71 million, I heard, is what it would have been.
Man.
So, I guess where would I go to spend it if I wanted to? Like, how do I know that? When it says $1.99 at the gas pump, how do I spend that my cryptocurrency? Where do I go?
I think it's a slow development there. It really is by choice. Overstock.com accepts Bitcoin.
Okay.
Tesla, was said that you can buy a Tesla with crypto with Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure Elon Musk said you can get a spot on the rocket to Mars with Dogecoin. Yeah. But it's really right now. And Joe, feel free. But it's more on kind of a case by case basis as far as individual companies and vendors and such. But some pretty good ones. But it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about the Visa backed cards and everything that could eventually make that into more of a reality.
Okay.
If not just the mass adoption of companies saying, okay, we're going to accept it.
And they'll market it and promote it, and you'll just know. Yep.
Right.
They do a good job of that. So.
I would concur. I think the major players like Visa and MasterCard, PayPal, you can buy crypto with PayPal and Venmo, I believe, as well. And to create a case in point, again, right now, Bitcoin, it's pretty tough to think of it as money,
Right.
but rather a store of value. But, a scenario would be, you buy a tenth of a Bitcoin, you put it on one of these Visa cards, you go around and spend it. While it's sitting on your Visa card, it's not deflating. You're not losing the value.
Right.
You may spend it away, but then you come back, you take your US dollars, you buy some more Bitcoin and recharge your card.
It's like it's a cycle of it. Yeah.
And while it's in cryptocurrency, you have a more reasonable possibility that it's going to hold its value.
Okay. I see these things popping up all over the place right now. NFTs. I see the Golden State Warriors. They're like, wait, tomorrow at noon, Klay Thompson's NFT. What is an NFT? Is it a fad? Is it going to stick around? Is it just another piece of this? Why am I seeing it? I'm a pro wrestling fan. Just came back from WrestleMania. The Undertaker's NFT. What is an NFT?
Well, I'll jump in on that one and just say that it's a pretty large subject.
Okay. Oh, really?
If
Okay.
We've only got a few minutes left.
Yeah.
I will say I think it's here to stay. The NFTs we're seeing mostly today are a little more geared towards, I wouldn't say art per se, but
Is it correct in saying that an NFT, if I what I understood when I read it, was that these places like the Warriors, right, or wrestling, they're making a unique item of that, and they're making only very few of them, and
only
that
one.
Oh, there's only one.
It's very unique. Like,
So it's so unique that now it becomes of value because. But if they're doing, okay,
let me use an analogy.
yeah,
My favorite band is Kings of Leon.
yep,
They just announced that they're going to sell their upcoming album as an NFT. So
interesting.
Ashley Hutchison can get on and purchase an album from Kings of Leon. That is an NFT. It's unique. It basically has my name on it. That I get these seats, I get these perks with it, etc. The same thing can be done with art, real estate, any asset. It's a unique token or a unique identifier for any asset or any item. You could design a shirt,
right.
and you could sell it as an NFT. And
But
if I buy that from you, I have a license to go and use it, but only that. So it's much different than a cryptocurrency per se.
Yeah, okay. I was wondering if they were even in the same field or not, because I've been seeing those pop up everywhere, and I was wondering if it had kind of staying power or not. Gentlemen, I've got a couple other questions for the Spotify listeners, if you guys will stay around for just a few minutes. I kind of want to talk about the idea of a finite amount of Bitcoin that we didn't really get a chance to touch on, and there's supposed to be a finite amount of dollars that exists. It used to be back on the gold standard. That does not exist no more. Ladies and gentlemen, YouTube world, sitting here with Joe Mattausch and Ashley Hutchison. I can't thank you guys enough for being here. I hope you
thank
enjoyed
you.
yourself.
Oh, this has been fantastic.
Absolutely
Really
loved
appreciate
it.
it.
I really feel like there needs to be a part 1 through 9 just to
Who
kind of
knows?
cover
Maybe
everything
a
that we
series,
need.
Hey,
YouTube, if you guys are out there, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you down the road. Spotify, stick around. We're going to ask these guys some questions right now. So diving into what I was just talking about with the finite amount of Bitcoin, is that true? Is that all the Bitcoin that could ever be mined is already, or not mined, but already exists? Help me understand what that means.